Welcome to KRQE's New Mexico News Insiders. Here's Gabrielle Burkhart and Chris McKee. Sponsored by New Mexico PBS.
So, Gabby, I want to open today's episode with a quiz for you.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and just so people can appreciate the secrecy on this, usually we write pretty much everything on our notes here going into these conversations. I specifically left the question off. I've been guarding it here in my jacket. And so the question for you is, we know that much like Congress in Washington, D.C., City Council here in Albuquerque has a lot of power when it comes to approving the city's budget. This year, it's about $1.4 billion. But that is a group effort, approving that budget. The question I have for you is there a way for city councilors to pick and choose on their own what they spend money on?
Yes.
You're correct.
Whew.
There
Oh,
is.
put me on the spot.
You're correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's a special
We should have
fund.
like a city council trivia night, right?
We should.
Ooh, that'd be a fun idea.
Yeah, we
Know
could
your
get right
trivia,
into it. The money on their own, it's a special fund each of the 9 city councilors has, and it allows each councilor to basically pick and choose special projects within their district that they want to fund. So this year, though, one city councilor is doing something pretty different with her fund of more than $1 million. She's flipped the idea of that unilateral decision-making per district, flipping that on its head, making people instead make that decision. You could say it's giving power to the people.
Yeah, let's dive into this with our 2 guests. We have returning to the New Mexico News Insiders, City Councilor for District 6, Nichole Rogers, who represents much of Southeast Albuquerque, including parts of Nob Hill and the International District. You're here along Jeff Hertz, a project specialist for Albuquerque City Council Services. Thank you both for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you. So excited.
So, Councilor Rogers, we've had you on before, but we've talked about your career. Let's just give a quick recap in case this is somebody's first introduction to you. You're a first-time city councilor, New Mexico native, mom of 2, and you live in Albuquerque's South Los Altos neighborhood. You told us you ran for council because your grandma made you do it.
Yes.
Pushing you to take on this community leader role. So now that it's been a year in your position, what's it like representing your neighborhood in Albuquerque's governing process?
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind. I've learned so much. I'm loving it, and I hope that people think I'm doing a good job. I work really hard because we have a lot to make up for. In our district, I feel like I'm coming in 25 years behind when you look at the investment that's been lacking in my areas. But I also feel an immense amount of gratitude for the folks in this first year that have stepped up to help me. Everything from, Jeff with the participatory budgeting, the community, UNM, community organizations, neighborhood associations, like everybody has really rallied together, and we have some synergy and some momentum, and you can drive and see a lot actually happening when it comes to the built environment in our district that really needs it. So we still have a long way to go because there's other things you see when you drive around my district as well that we have to, fix still. But yeah, I'm grateful and still happy to be here.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, tell us a little bit about what you do. You're not a city councilor, but you work with city councilors pretty closely on certain things. You work in council services. Tell us, what is council services and what is your job?
Yeah, so I'm a policy analyst, and I get to work with councilors in drafting legislation, in developing new programs, working pretty closely with other city departments to implement those programs. With participatory budgeting, I've been very much in trying to kind of be a liaison between the council office and the community, and really trying to launch a new way of budgeting funding in a way that really is designed and operated by community members. And so it's been one of my favorite, if not my most rewarding project that I've had with council. So
Wow. And how long have you been with council?
a little over 9 years now. So
I know. Wow.
High
Jeff.
praise. High
So
praise.
cool.
Yeah.
And council services, just to cover a little bit about that, people don't realize, like, we have our own department within the city of Albuquerque that's council services, that's made up of, each city councilor gets their own direct policy analyst, but we also have a team of folks, almost 40 or so folks, that help us do the things that we need so that we can be responsive to the people. So we could not do this without them. So I'm excited that we get to highlight, because they're folks you don't really get to see or
they're kind
hear
of behind
a lot
the
about
scenes.
Yeah, but they help us be what we are for the community, and I'm so grateful for all of them. But Jeff, for sure, on participatory budgeting, it's been clutch.
Yeah.
Well, let's dive into this initiative that you're both involved in. Chris called it Giving Power to the People. One of the other names for it is participatory budgeting. I don't know. One of them has a ring to it.
Yeah, I like Chris.
No, the rebranding.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Yeah.
It does involve a public process in what to do with more than $1 million. Tell us briefly, like high level, what is this project you've taken on?
Sure. So participatory budgeting is not a new concept. It's new here because no other counselor, no one really in government has done this in Albuquerque that we could find. There's been some hybrid. Councilor Benton actually did a hybrid kind of model where he already had projects picked out, and then the community can vote on which projects to then fund. We've taken the true participatory process where we have 50 steering team members that have signed up across our district to actually help us design the process, first of all. So it's designed by the people, for the people, right? And then community members from across the district were able to then put in project ideas. But we first had to do a lot of education, because a lot of folks don't know what what is capital?
Right.
And capital comes from our bond process that is on all of our ballots, where you have the questions, we want to use this money for storm infrastructure or libraries, and you say yes or no, right? Which will happen again in November of this year.
Every
2
years.
years.
Pop up on the city elections. Yeah.
Exactly. And so those projects then, out of that money, each counselor gets a set aside from that process of $1.5 million, so that you can do community enhancement projects that you can use capital dollars for. So that means anything tangible that you can touch and feel, and that'll enhance your community for the next 10 plus years. And so we, instead of me deciding that, we have had over 200 project submissions from across the district. In our first year, we were like, if we get 100, we'll be happy. 243 projects came in from across the district, from pretty much every neighborhood in our district, except Mesa del Sol, which is interesting because Mesa del Sol is pretty brand new. You know, they're feeling pretty good about their surroundings up there. And now the reason we're here to talk about it is because it's voting time. So now community members can then weigh in on projects that have been worked on by community members. The budget delegates is another group of volunteers that has worked directly with city departments to come up with, what is the price tag? Can this project be done in 2 years? Grouping like projects together, because there were a lot of themes throughout our it was really cool to see the themes that popped up. Public restrooms, housing, services and things for unsheltered community members. Of course, we can't use this funding on services, right? It has to be on the built environment, something tangible that you can build and be there for 10 plus years. So we're excited. There's a lot.
And certainly, I think we're going to get into some of the things you mentioned there. But I wanted to ask, before we get into some of the projects and the process, I wanted to ask, how did you arrive upon this process? Because it's a choice, right? And, some of the background here is that city councilors, they have that set aside funding. You mentioned that basically it's that bond money, comes every 2 years. Each district office usually gets around $1 to $2 million for projects they want to spend within their district. I remember, I can just point to one example, Councilor Isaac Benton. He spent some of his set aside money to buy trees over by the aquarium. I remember amid a whole story about, how that street reshaped after the art project. So, just an example of some of the many projects, but you decided to do this. This is allowing people to decide how that money would be spent. Why did you make that choice?
Well, for me, I am a community activist at heart. Like that's where my roots are. And so I don't know how to do this work without community. And so for me, I knew that I said when I ran for this job that my job would be to align the city's budget with this community's priorities, right? And this is the perfect way to do that because I feel like selfishly, this is my to-do list, right? Because the community members, they're the eyes and ears for their neighborhoods. They know what they need. They see it every day. They live it every day. We just need to listen to them. Like literally, and quite literally, this is a way that people can tell us what they need in their neighborhood, and we do it. A lot of times I was often frustrated with government where you'd come, you'd give them your ideas, you tell them what you need, and you never see anything done. So for me, this is just about putting my money where my mouth is when it comes to what I see as our job in council is to align the city's budget with the community's priorities, and this allows me to do it. So I said we were going to do it, and we're doing it.
And Jeff, I wanted to ask you, you've been with council now just 9 years. This is, again, kind of the first councilor you've seen do this. I mean, what has it been like for you experience-wise? You're the one working with councilors on a lot of the things that happen in their district. What's it been like for you to see this process?
Well, I think the key behind this process more than anything is the counselor talked about education. I think education for both the community members as well as staff, right? Like, I think there's so much of the time where there's that local knowledge that is out there, and then there's technical expertise within the city, and we just don't value each other's understanding enough, right? And I think that this pilot program has started a conversation about how we can really we can take both the technical expertise and the local knowledge and make something special. And so I feel the other piece that is really important is the building of trust. There's a lot of time, as the counselor noted, that I feel in her district there's been a lot of promises made or a lot of great work that's been done, but then there isn't the follow through. And so this is an initiative that allows us to build that trust again. And so,
how are you all reaching people in those educational efforts and letting people know, hey, you can submit project ideas? What was your plan of action as far as broad reach so that you can get those 200 plus submissions? Yeah,
the team worked amazingly well together to put together an outreach plan that really made sure we had things in multiple languages, made sure we were prioritizing folks who don't normally have a seat at these tables. So we went to people. Of course we held big assemblies where people could come to a bigger event and learn, but we also did individual workshops. So if your neighborhood association had a meeting and you wanted us to come, we came and provided that education and showed you how to submit this project idea. We made a list of all of the community events that were happening in the district, and we sent people to those community events and set up tables. We went to shelters. We went to middle schools. We went to high schools. We went to charter schools. Outreach for me is all about meeting people where they are, and also having an online system where people could quickly on their phone just enter an idea. We got a big, huge, giant map of the district and got some push pins and some papers, and people could just write, oh, I want a park bench there, or I want trees along this road. I feel like we can always get better. There's 60,000 or plus people in our district. So obviously we can do better at reaching more people, but we're going to do this every year that I'm here. So we will continue to get better at getting the word out, and you're helping us with that today, reaching more people.
We'll be right back with more of the New Mexico News Insiders.
Hi, I'm Logan Rader, host of New Mexico Living. New Mexico News Insiders is sponsored by New Mexico PBS.
If you like New Mexico News Insiders, learn more about New Mexico in Focus, a weekly hour-long show analyzing decisions impacting New Mexico statewide. Stream it anytime, anywhere. Visit nmpbs.org and follow them on all social media platforms.
Now back to New Mexico News Insiders.
So some might hear this idea and think, well, Counselor, people elected you to make decisions that, based on your knowledge of the district and the overall community. Does part of you have any concern when you hand over power of this decision making, that it might become maybe a popularity contest of who hears about this, who can participate, or that people might not make a decision that has the best interests of the entire district or maybe their own personal interests? Do you have any of those like conflicting ideas?
Yeah, no, for me, my goal is always to share power, right? In this role, I always said that I want to share the power. And we're more powerful together. So for me, we do think about our process very intentionally to make sure those power dynamics, we try to mitigate for that. But you're right, whoever has the privilege to show up to more meetings tends to have a larger voice sometimes in these processes. So our team definitely talked about that. We had some community orgs that were like, hey, we didn't hear and we needed to pull up and repair that harm. So those things happen in community processes, but I'm not afraid to do that. I think that only makes us more powerful together because we're all pulling in the same direction. And you can really feel that in our district. I think people appreciate getting the knowledge of how this works, how they get involved. And what's beautiful is we always call it a perfect storm, because the people's budget here in Albuquerque on UNM's campus and in our communities during 2020 really came up with started talking about participatory budgeting through the people's budget. And then I knew about that, and I had read about participatory budgeting, and I won my election. And it was funny, the first meeting we had, they had this whole pitch, and I was like, you don't need to pitch it, I already know I want to do it. And they were like, what? And this was students at UNM that really helped us with the foundation, that have been the ones really leading and with community members. So it's been really quite beautiful of I mean, there's hiccups on all the things, and we'll keep getting better every year, but nobody has said, I don't want you to do this. And from the community, people want to be involved, and it's budget season right now. So I encourage everybody to get involved from any district, because right now we're talking about the budget. We receive the budget from the city. Today's April 1st. We get the budget today. We start talking about it in our community of the whole meetings. Those are public meetings. You can watch them on YouTube. You can sign up for public comment. You can get involved in your budget. It is the people's budget.
People who want to have a voice can.
Absolutely. But we are also not great at being transparent. Like, hey, y'all, this is happening now. Like, right, where is the news cycles about that, right? Like, we have to change the narrative a little bit and talk more about these processes so people can be involved. Because I want you to be, we need you to be, because there's some things happening in these budgets that, and I have always said, I know that a budget is a moral document. We budget for what we value. And if you look at the budgets and which departments have what budgets and who has the largest versus others, you can see what we value as a government. And so I would highly recommend people get involved in your budget. It's your budget, it's your taxes.
So we mentioned this is seemingly the first time that any kind of participatory budget thing has happened in a council district or here in the city. It started the process, it sounds like started last October. And, you had mentioned you got nearly 250 ideas. I wanted to ask, did you find all of those ideas worthy, or were some of them just kind of like, okay, what's
Can
happening?
you share with us some of the outlandish ones maybe?
Yeah, I take it that they were all over the map, though. Some of them are really valuable. Some of them maybe a little bit more.
There are. There's one of the final projects that I hear from people that are like, I don't get it. It's a first responder mural, but it's on solar panels, right? But the idea is that folks can plug into the solar panels to charge their phones and things like that. So there's a community benefit to it. Yeah. And people love murals, and murals came up a lot. So one, someone just kind of ran with that one, and it made it all the way to the end. And people are kind of going, okay.
The merging of two ideas.
Yeah, the merging of, two ideas. So that one's, and I think one that made it to the ballot that people are somewhat like, compared to the growers market, right, where we're going to get fresh food, and or the 5 blocks to life. That one's a really awesome project that came from Wilson Middle School. And the kids basically just said, look, we want to beautify the 5 blocks leading up to school, because what we see our faded signs, street signs, faded crosswalks. We don't have any trees. It's dirt. Can we get some medians, like landscaping, some murals, some colorful stuff, just leading up to the 5 blocks up to the school. And that one, they want to start at 1 and continue to do them. And they did this really cool map where you can see if we just focused on the 5 blocks around every school, how that can really transform the international district. So that one's really cool too.
I feel like one thing that I've learned a lot about participatory budgeting, especially during a pilot like this, is that it's, we know that 1.5 out of that large budget, $4 billion budget we're talking about, like there's a value to small targeted investments that are going to have a ripple effect, I think, and when you build those projects with community members and there's buy-in, that money's going to go a lot further. Right. And so, the 5 blocks for life, I feel like the Portland Lou project, with restrooms, these are projects that have been kind of developed and fully baked within community for a long time now. And I feel like when you have that buy-in and you've got that support, it's more than just a capital project. It's going to be something that has a long-term impact. So.
Yeah, and I imagine it's pretty cool. Like, if the 5 blocks of life comes to fruition, those folks from Wilson Middle School can look at that and be like, "Hey, that was our idea. Yeah. It really happened."
Yes, and what's exciting is we've had a community member I have to give a shout out to named Colleen. I'm like especially drawn to her because she's a single mom, just like I am. A woman of color, doesn't have a lot of time to attend these types of things, but has really. She shares her story about participatory budgeting, and she said, like, I didn't know what this was all about. I showed up because someone said there's not going to be a lot of people like me there, so I should show up. And I came, and it wasn't anything like I thought it was going to be. I actually had a voice. I got to use it. She went from really just listening to being very vocal, and like, I just to see her come out of her shell, like, no, I do have a say in my neighborhood. She signed up also as a budget delegate for her project idea because she lives on a 4-way stop in her neighborhood where she sees a lot of accidents, a lot of speeding. So her project idea was to put a 4-way stop on Washington and Zuni. And when she was meeting with the department, because that's the other beautiful thing is they don't just put in their idea and be like, bye. If they sign up to be a budget delegate, then they sit with the city department, get the quotes, work out the project description, go to the site, look at with the department to find out what's going on. Yeah. The department looked at the crash data from that area and said, oh, you're right. We need to do something now. We can't wait for your little participatory budgeting process. Oh, wow. So they've already installed the 3-way stop, I think is what and lighting, extra lighting in that area. And that came, and she said, I never dreamed that they would I thought the community would still have to vote on it and it would still be a question mark. Yeah. But the fact that I raised this up as a concern and I saw it happen and we didn't have to wait because it was a life safety issue, that's what this for me is all about. There are eyes and ears. I drive there all the time, but I don't live right on that corner. And so that's what this is all about, is taking people who live in these neighborhoods every single day. They know what they need. And if we just listen, and now the ripple effect that's going to have, I'm already getting emails from people saying, thank you for doing that. Thank you. I didn't know that somebody was actually listening.
That's a win for sure.
I was going to say, it's really inspiring because I think we as news reporters for years, you hear it from both sides. You hear the idea from the community that say the city needs to do something to address this problem. And then we go to the city and they say, well, they have no idea what it takes to address this program or, this problem, this issue. It's going to cost all this sort of money. And then there's no real outcome there. First. You just get two sides saying chirping at each other.
Studies. Oh my God.
Studies, right?
Studies. We had to do a whole bunch of education for community around the studies and what, do we put something on the ballot that's going to take 4 studies to, and that it was interesting to even just delve in and learn about who makes that rule? Well, is that a federal rule or is that a us rule? And what? Yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds like
that you didn't wait for the study for Washington and Zuni.
No, crash data showed us that we needed it. So if we could mitigate it, we should.
Yeah. To my point, it was just it's an important bridge. It sounds like you're making between the city and the people. That's there.
As of this recording, the list has been narrowed down to now 9 projects vying for funding. And again, this funding is purely from that council district set aside pot of money from District 6. It runs the gamut from smaller things like a one-stop respite station for $175,000, bike infrastructure improvements that would take the whole pool of $1.5 million. What are some of the other projects now on the table?
Yeah, so in addition to the 5 blocks for life, which would also be about 1.5 million too, there's some other ones like the murals. Those ones are, I think, closer to $64,000 each for those. We have good projects ranging from like the parklets. Those were, I think, $500,000 per parklet. That was been really cool too, is to teach people how much things cost. So we had a little menu, and you know who did the best guessing? The students. High school, Highland High School. Like we did a little Mentimeter to say, how much does this a park bench cost? And they knew the cost.
Put this on our council trivia idea.
Yes.
We should pitch this.
How much does a street repaving cost per mile? Like it was crazy. So we have a good range, but for me, I want to see all these projects done, right? So we took actually a bunch of folks from the participatory budgeting team to the legislature to try to get more capital dollars. We didn't get any capital dollars specifically for participatory budgeting because it was a new concept. They're like, wait a minute, you want me to fund something and we don't know exactly how the community is going to vote and which projects you're going to do? Yeah. So this year we'll move our timeline up. So by the time we go to the legislature in the next session, we know exactly what projects the community voted for and can do more. So we learned, we tried, we took our little T-shirts up there and on the back it says, show me the money. So we're going to keep trying. But strategically, I put in some of the project ideas in a separate capital request to see if they would maybe fund that just because we were learning. So we did get some funding. Thank you to, I think, Antoinette Cedillo Lopez, Mariana Anaya for our hygiene trailers, which is one of the projects because we're constantly hearing about showers and laundry services for our unsheltered neighbors. So we did get funding for some of that. So that will help us. We'll add that to the pot and basically we'll be able to do more. My goals, I would love to see us fund all of them, but it's going to be dependent on what the people vote on.
Yeah. Do either of you have a favorite right now, or do you not want to influence the vote?
We'll see. What do you think, Jeff?
I don't know. I mean,
I don't think we can influence it too bad.
I definitely feel the growers market is one that, I there's a lot, obviously there was food access is a big thing in the councilor's district. And I feel like there's a wide variety of ways to address food access, but in the same way, there's the downtown growers market, the rail yards market. There really is a huge need in her district, and I feel like that is going to be a big one. And so that's for me. But
yeah, that one's for the food access. I think what's interesting too is housing came up a lot, but you won't see anything for housing on the ballot because we're not going to build anything for $1.5 million. That was a hard one for the team, I think, because everyone knows that that's such a need. But we're working on housing in a different ask. The city asked for $80 million in housing money, so we'll be able to do that with different pots of money. So people, please don't think we're housing. We know it's a big need. It's just not something we're going to tackle with $1.5 million. Let's be real. But I think my favorite is the 5 blocks for life, just because it came from the students. And when we were walking around these neighborhoods, you're like, you're right. Everything is faded. Why? So, and that's stuff we can easily do quickly. We've already actually installed the speed bumps that they needed right in front of Wilson. So I'm also trying to pick off things that I can do in other ways quickly because I feel like this is our to-do list. So my job is going to be to get more money.
You mentioned that voting is happening now, and I wanted to ask you about that. Who can do it?
Yes.
When does it start? When does it go to?
Yeah.
And will the result just be one project, or is it multiple? Because as we mentioned, some of the projects do take the whole amount of money, but some of them don't. And the winners, once they're picked, when might action start happening?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So voting started this past Saturday, the 29th, and it'll go till April 19th. People can vote at pbabq.org. Click on vote. Anybody who is 11 years old or older, yes, kids can vote. And that was a really interesting conversation in the team for who can vote. I felt strongly that if these middle schoolers can put in this project for the 5 Blocks for Life, they should be able to vote on these projects as well. Yeah. And we're teaching them how to exercise their civic engagement in their voting. So we're really excited. We're going to be at Wilson Middle School. All the social studies teachers are going to bring the kids down so they can come, and we're doing a science fair type setup for them, and they get to vote. So 11 years or older, as long as you live, work, or study in District 6, you can vote. All you do is go onto the website, click vote. You'll enter your phone number to get a unique voting code. If you don't have a phone, that's okay. You just we can get you an individual code. Our team has the ability to give folks individual codes, so everybody can vote. And the vote, what projects get funded based on the prices of the ones that come first, second, third. Basically, it's going to prioritize them for us in order that the community voted them on, and we'll do as many as we can fund. Really.
How do you validate or legitimize those online votes to make sure, like, yes, these are people who live and work in Albuquerque, and you're not just getting, potentially a bot trying to submit 1 million votes?
Yeah. Well, we have partnered with Stanford Democracy Crowdsource team. So PB Stanford helped us with this voting tool. And so really it's just an attestation, an online attestation saying that you attest that you've work, live, or study in District 6 and you're 11 or older. I'm not too worried about bots. I can't imagine someone's going to spend a lot of money to go and influence our little election in our little district, but I feel confident that our system will help with that. Yeah.
And there's the use of the cell phone numbers. So it's all tied. Whenever you go to vote, you have to enter your phone number, you get texted a code. And so there's that as a big verification piece.
Yeah, so you can't get 5 codes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So the final choice, when does that get made, and when would you like to get these done by?
So the criteria for picking projects for the ballot, the team also came up with a criteria, and we wanted to see projects that can be done and started and finished within 2 years. So that's the goal, is to have all of these projects. We have the funding July 1. And we've already been doing the groundwork with the departments to get quotes and all of those things. So we'll be ready to go July 1. It just depends on how quickly we can get, depending on the project, how quickly we can get the contractors on and going.
Okay, so voting goes through April 19th. It's been narrowed down to 9 projects. You held a kickoff expo with a deeper look at these projects. What has the feedback been like from community? How many people showed up?
Yeah, we've already, we had our first event this past Saturday. We had 115 logged votes. I know we had probably easily 200 or so folks. Some folks just wanted to get the information and go back and read more in depth. But already out of our first event, 115 logged votes. We'll be at Wilson Middle School again this Wednesday. We have a virtual session also for folks. We'll have breakout rooms for each of the projects that people can come in and out of, and a room to help folks vote if they need codes. And then we'll have a final assembly on April 16th at Heights Community Center. And I believe it's at 6 to 8 o'clock.
6 to 8 o'clock.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a final big party. We'll have food. You can come. You can meet the people that have been working on the projects. Shout out to our city departments, Department of Municipal Development, our capital team, Sean Maiden. This is truly, and I have to say that, a true collaboration between everybody, like the administration, council, the community. Everybody has really pushed together, and I'm grateful in this, political climate that we can all. But to me, this is where it's at, and whatever's happening nationally, right? If we just focus here on our little neck of the woods here together, we really can do some things.
Yeah. Well, I understand, there's a hope that maybe this sets a trend to do in possibly other council districts, other neighborhoods. What do you hope, what kind of message you hope this sends to the rest of the city about process?
Yeah. Look, we have a lot of people up for re-election in November. We do. We have 5 city council seats, so council districts 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. and a mayor, right? And so when I ask questions, and I got the same questions as a candidate, like, how are you going to make sure my needs are met, or the things that I think we need in the community are met? And if you think participatory budgeting is a great way to do that, ask for it. You can ask for it by name. If we did this for the cities, again, the city's capital budget is $175 million. $1 million.
And capital, again, projects that you're building something.
Tangible.
That's how much the city has to, obviously we need to save some for infrastructure and streets and roads and those things, right? I'd argue we need to do more of that, especially in my district where we desperately need paved roads. But we could do this. We could even just say 5% of that budget goes to community to decide. We can say 10%. There's countries. I'm part of Global Ties, and we had a group from Kyrgyzstan, come here to find out what we're doing about participatory budgeting. Like, you're doing this, we do this in our country. They have an app. I really want an app because it actually gives access to folks who don't have time, who are working 3 jobs, who can't come to a session, but can go on this app and find out, okay, here's where the projects are. Here's what was voted on. I can vote here. I can submit a project here. They do it with 10% of their entire country's housing budget. They do participatory budgeting. We already have 1,000 cities across the country doing it. New York does it. They have a huge budget. They do it for their city budget. Denver has a process for this. It started in Brazil. Like, this has already been done. We can do it too. We can do it more. So we're hoping that we're going to design the playbook, and we do. We have a PB playbook that we're documenting everything. All of our processes are documented. We can easily hand it off to anybody who wants to do this, and we'll be happy to mentor anyone who wants to do this. Not even just city councilors. We can do this in the state, our reps, our senators. We can do a lot of good aligning our budgets.
Do you get the sense from any other counselors kind of like side-eyeing you? Like, what is she doing over there? Is it working? Is it good? Or like
a good side-eye or a bad side-eye?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, Rogers, stop it. That's the kind of feeling that I feel. It's like, oh, here's Rogers with her community engagement. That's how I feel. But I'm not... Look, I would never try to make my colleagues do something that they don't want to do. And I respect their decisions to run their districts the way that they see fit. And this is just, for me, how I choose to do the role, is with community. I don't want to do this by myself.
What about you, Jeff?
I want to say that I feel, again, this is starting a conversation, not just with the counselors, but I think with the entire city, right? I think it's the reason it starts with capital projects, right, is that, one, it's with the counselors and their discretionary funds, but 2, because since it's capital, it's something that community members can easily wrap their minds around, right? It's something they can see in their neighborhood. But I think the longer term conversation is about how we can eventually get to operations and maintenance and think about programs and services and how community members can really chime in on those type of things. And so I think this is just the beginning about giving the community a chance to hold that mirror, like the counselor said. It's a moral document, it's a true reflection of who we are. And so I feel that community members, they see that they have this window, and I think they're going to continue to see that if the counselors and the city open that up. So
we'll be right back with more on New Mexico News Insiders.
Hi, I'm Monica Wicki, host of New Mexico Living. This episode of New Mexico News Insiders is sponsored by New Mexico PBS. If you enjoy New Mexico News Insiders, check out New Mexico in Focus, a great source for insights about what's happening in our state. Catch their podcast and videos at nmpbs.org or stream it anytime, anywhere on the free PBS app. Now, let's continue to New Mexico News Insiders.
Well, Councilor Rogers, we've also talked about how your district, in the past, the challenges that the international district faces. For example, just about 3 months ago, we had you on the show talking about the potential of revitalizing Expo New Mexico Fairgrounds, for instance. But in this realm, what you're doing here, you've explained why you think this is the right way to go, inviting people to participate in how city money would be spent. Forward looking, it sounds like this kind of opens the door for more ideas. Are you adding more work for yourself, or how do you see this like playing out in the future? in different projects?
It's definitely more work to involve community, obviously, because you're having to design processes where they can easily come in and participate, and not just like show up and be like, what are we doing? And it felt like that at the beginning, because we started in February. I won in January. I took office in January, and we started planning in February, so that by the time October came, when we started doing the community meetings and trainings, and we had processes really identified and worked out. And so for me, it is harder to involve community, but it's more meaningful. Like, these are folks who are getting access in a way that they've never gotten access to government. And like Jeff said, the distrust part for me is the biggest piece. I am here and I still have trust issues, like with government, and I'm in there. I'm not of here, but I'm in here. Right. And so I get the trust issues, and we've had to have those conversations of like, last time the city wanted to do this here. They promised us this growers market, right? Because this is something that we've promised this community for a long time, not just since the Walmart closed, right? This is something we've asked for in this community for generations. And so yeah, it's harder, but it's more meaningful because there are eyes and ears. I wouldn't have known about that intersection. I wouldn't have known about the respite stops and the need to give community a way to help. And I think right now everybody's looking, especially in our district with our challenges that we have, everyone's looking for a way to help and a way to get involved that's positive and not always so negative.
Well, Councilor Nichole Rogers and Jeff Hertz, thank you both for joining us. Sounds like a fascinating project, and we're excited to see the end of this wrap up here soon.
Yeah, thank you for having us. And don't forget to vote. I would love, our goal is 5,000 people vote, which is about the same amount of people that voted in my runoff. So please come out. This is fun. It's a different way of looking at civic engagement and exercising your voice. Bring your kids because they can vote if they're 11 or older. I'm really excited about that because we need to teach them that you can vote for something and see it happen, right? Like, can you imagine, like, to be an 11-year-old and be like, I wanted this thing and look, it happened?
Yeah. It's a pretty powerful thing.
I just want to add, that I think we're at a time now where we feel, with everything that's happening at the federal level, that we don't have as much agency as we feel we do. But the truth is we have it here, right? It's I think local government, we're learning in finding the avenues to give to community members, but they have agency, and so we just need to remember that.
Cool. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Well, thanks again to Councilor Nichole Rogers and Jeff Hertz for breaking down the idea of participatory budgeting with us. Again, voting is open until April 19th.
Yeah, and if you want to take a look at more details behind each one of these projects, pbabq.org. That is the website that they have to look at the projects and also to participate in the voting, which, as Gabby mentioned, is open until mid to late April the 19th there. So thanks for joining us for another episode here on New Mexico News Insiders. If you have an idea, let us know. I'm at chris.mckee@krqe.com, also at Chris McKee TV.
And I'm Gabrielle.Burkhart@krqe.com via email and gburgnm on social media. Thank you all for listening and watching.